but I am not giving legal advice here. So we don't have an attorney-client relationship. This is all just sort of general knowledge. So please, if you have additional questions after this, happy to discuss, happy to give you some counsel. Please feel free to reach out to Charlene or myself with questions. We're here to help. My background is in business, never been a litigator, always do transactional work. So small to medium-sized companies is really where I focus my time and addressing sort of a general counsel role. And part of the big issues that people are facing today is how do we get through this pandemic and how can we come out better? So pretty much just here to help, and I'll turn it over to Charlene now.
Good morning. Thank you, Nathan. My name's Charlene Shockely. As Nathan says, we're here to give you some knowledge. And it's like, I love what Nick said. It is changing daily. I've been in the SBA world for, I want to give my age, but over 40 plus years. I started in real estate. My father was a real estate appraiser. So of course I'm a real estate pro. I do mostly commercial. I've done SBA loans for that when people want to buy a business. I'm very familiar with it. My family lives in Florida. So I've done a lot of SBA disaster loans for many, many clients. We have a wholesale coffee roasting business in Florida, and you can imagine how many loans I've done just in that area because of the disasters that have happened there. I'm also a paralegal and I'm a business broker. So what does that mean? I know what I'm doing as far as SBA. It is constantly changing, and we're going to give you some information. And I love what Nathan just said is that you reach out to us individually because we're not in a fiduciary relationship with you. We can only give you some guidance. And what my father always used to say, surround yourself with people that are smarter than yourself, and that way you can make wise choices for your business. My collaborative partners are other real estate agents, attorneys, financial planners, and lenders. I only deal with SBA 7A preferred lenders. And what I want to tell you about that's where these two programs are coming from. Yes, there are some other SBA programs, but the PPP is the 7A program. It was designed to help our country, but there was another version of it for Puerto Rico, if you're aware of, that happened, devastation, total devastation for that island. I had many friends and attorney friends and banker buddies that went there for months, and I helped them virtually. So I'm very familiar with these programs. There's a lot of misconceptions. I tell people, don't listen to the news, please. I want to give kudos to Congressman Latterman. If you have a moment, please join Cobb Chamber. They give an update with some very wonderful vice presidents I personally know about the changing world of SBA. My lenders that I'm in contact with, because I do SBA loans all over the country. So when people say, hey, Ms. Charlene's got it on a pulse, I have a little pulse because this is a gray area. You can imagine what the government is trying to do. So it's like me and Nick getting 500 phone calls and Nathan getting 500 phone calls in one day, and we're trying to get back to them. Correct, Nathan?
That's right.
So I think that we just need, the biggest word is patience. I know what it's like for my small businesses. I've only deal with small businesses, and that's less than 500 employees. So that's the category that I'm concerned about right now because there's a lot of misconceptions. The PPP was stated as a very good program when it first came out. It has changed. So I'm just going to go over some of the changes. And I'm going to try to show my screen, Nick, so I'm not very techie for you guys. So.
What we can do real quick.
I got people that help me.
I want to go ahead and let the panelists know that, and I see a couple of questions coming in already through the chat, and we're going to start getting to these. If you've got questions, please put them into the chat or put them into the Q&A so we can start asking those. We're going to get to those right here in a second. Real quick, Nathan, high level, if you could just talk a little bit about some of the legal implications of these various loan programs as people are starting to apply for them.
Sure. These are federal loans, and like any federal loan, you need to be careful what you put on your application. You need to be honest and you need to be accurate. If you misrepresent yourself and your earnings and your company, there's a lot of bad things that can happen. First of all, your loan will get denied. Second, you'll be blacklisted, so you can't get future loans. You'll also be subject to fines and possible federal prison if the misrepresentations are bad enough, and if, depending on when and where you get caught in the process. The underwriting is loose on these, but they are still doing some diligence and confirmation. So odds are you will get caught if you're putting things on there, especially related to payroll and earnings, because it's real easy to verify. Some things that you also want to take into consideration is your current obligations with your existing lenders. Usually there are covenants in your loan documents that says, I won't take on any more debt. Well, the SBA loan is a loan and it is taking on more debt. So you have a technical default under your current loan documents. Now, I don't think the banks want to take the reputational hit on going after someone who's in this situation, but know that it's out there. Most of the bankers I've talked to have said, we're going to treat this more as an equity injection rather than a loan and not a violation of the covenants. But we'll see what happens when the dust settles and what's forgiven and what's not. But just keep that in mind, that taking on additional debt could also lead to some future issues with current lenders. And then there's always this bankruptcy concern. SBA loans, they are dischargeable in bankruptcy, but the liens that the SBA take on the assets do not get removed. So your personal liability can go away, but if you put up your personal residence as a guarantee and they have a security interest in it, even though you filed bankruptcy and the debt is just discharged, they can still take your asset, which is the house, even though it's gone through a bankruptcy. So don't go in thinking, I'll borrow a bunch of money, file bankruptcy, and skate out of here. It's not going to work that way because of the lien that they have on the assets. You still have some liability and recourse there. So it's not as clean as everybody thinks with just filing bankruptcy. And again, these programs are designed really as a short-term Band-Aid to get you in a bridge loan capacity from today to 8 weeks from now. It's not a cure-all. It's not going to solve all your problems. And as of this morning, there were reports that most of the money's already gone. They're waiting on a second round of funding to come through, but there's no activity yet on has that occurred, at least as of 11 o'clock when I looked. And everything we say today really is, to the best of our knowledge today. It could change tomorrow. New programs have come out. And in fact, one thing that changed from yesterday, if you are in a partnership, you can file for one PPP loan. Before, there was a question on if partners needed to file individual loan applications separate from the actual partnership as independent contractors. So they've come out with some additional guidance yesterday that said partners can file one loan application so that everybody has an opportunity to try and get funding rather than each individual partner filing and clogging up the queue. So that's sort of high level. What you need to look out for is the bankruptcy issues, the misrepresentations, and the current lender problems.
All right, Nathan, thank you very much. And Charlene,
Yeah, thank you.
go ahead and try to do your screen share.
Okay, sure. I'm just pulling up my document. Is that without share? Can you see it?
I do not.
How do I
At
change
the very
that?
bottom, if you hit share screen, and if that doesn't work, I have the ability to pull the document up as
I was
well.
gonna say you got the document. Yeah.
I do, but at the very bottom, you should have a button that says share screen.
Oh, cool. Can you ready to see it? SBA Paycheck
There we
Protection
go.
Program.
There it is. We are cooking with gas.
Yay! All right. Thank you. Thank you. So you teach me new things, which I need. Thank you. You have people to help me do this. Nick has been awesome. I want to thank Nick so much for getting this information out, because as Nathan said, it is changing constantly. I saw a question about, do I need to reapply again? No. If you've already applied once, do not apply again. Because if you apply again, let's say you applied somewhere and then you go apply for another with another bank, it will cancel you. I was told that by my lenders this morning. And we do not want you to be canceled out of the SBA computer, okay? So everyone just got a generic email saying, hey, hello, this is the government, we got your stuff. And that's telling you, hold on. Everybody got that email either Tuesday or Wednesday. So
and that is different than what they told you last week when they said there's a new application. So if you have filled out an application already, fill out the new application. It won't lose your spot in line, but we need you to fill out the new EIDL application. So again, it is pretty chaotic out there. There's a lot of changing information. So the most recent thing is don't fill out the new application, contrary to what we told you earlier. So they're trying.
Because believe it or not, there's another version coming out. And I love what Nathan said is this is a quick, we're looking at an 8-week window. So I tell my small businesses, what are your plans 6 months or a year from now? That's where you need to reach out to me and Nathan and say, we are looking at the bigger picture. Because at the end of the day, 8 weeks is nice if the government wants to give us some money, but this can be turned into a loan, just like Nathan told you, that if you don't have documentation, then it's not going to turn into a grant. I'm on the board of a nonprofit. I'm dealing with the grant world all day long. I hang out with a lot of nonprofits. So when people say, hey, you get free money for your nonprofit. No, it's only free if I do A through Z plus 1 through 22. And trust me, as I've got a slew of Nathans on our board because it's very detailed. We can do forensic audits at any time. My CPAs are not only CPAs, or tax attorneys. So I'm very familiar of saying, I don't trust the government when they said they're going to give you $10,000. Okay, but I've got a list of like 20 pieces of paperwork you got to do to get some of that money and keep it. So I just wanted to go over the SBA Paycheck Protection Program loan. I don't know if any of y'all have done it or not. So basically it's saying, yes, here we are. We got some money for you. We're trying to keep your businesses rolling because we're trying to keep the whole idea is if you laid off people already, we want you to bring them back. That's what the government wants you to do. So it's not saying you have to be paying them right now. It's saying once that money gets dropped into your account, and I'm telling you right now, put that money in a separate checking account so we can track it. So if we do have to do a forensic audit, or Nathan's company has to come, and sometimes you have to have a third-party auditor or attorney audit your books, or someone else, whatever the government tells us. That's why me and Nathan are partners. Because once again, it's not what I say to do, it's what the government says to do. So basically, we're trying to cover salary, payroll, because the PPP is 80% payroll and 20% rent and utilities. So like I tell people, let's just take an average rent. And I know it's not this one, Nick, because we have a realtor and a business person on the phone and on the line. So we have $1,000 for rent. I don't know where that would be, maybe, and I don't know, Valdosta. How about we take Valdosta? $1,000 for rent. Our utilities are $200. So that's $1,200, but I need $5,000 for payroll. So the formula is you kind of add the payroll plus utilities, you come up with a magic number, and now they're going to give you a loan 2.5 times the monthly payroll costs. So I had a different thing than you did, Nathan. I was told there's still some money there. So yes, it's first come, first serve. And I was told that yes, and whoever works for Mr. Butterman's office can pipe in, because I know I've reached out to Chamber and to SBA and said, I'm sure our congressmen and senators are asking for more money because we're going to need more money. It's just not enough. So, so basically the payroll.
Yeah, they're looking at another 250.
Okay. Yeah, and he was, and like Nathan and I both know, that's probably still not enough. It's probably still not enough. So, so basically.
Round 3.
Sir?
I was going to say they need to go for round 3.
Yes, sir. And I agree with you 100% because Nathan and I will tell you, one of the statistics that I've read is at least 70 to 80% of America is run on small businesses. So the statistics are always changing. So, we run this country. This is businesses less than 500 employees. So we should be getting money. And that's why I said, reach out to your congressman, reach out to your senator, reach out to these people that are speaking for us on the floor and saying, we need help. And I really appreciate everyone has been patient and working diligently around the clock to say, I know Congressman Latimer's office has, because I personally have reached out to them. And it's just an information wheel that we just have to be patient. Once again, as business owners, our job is to focus 6 months, a year to 5 years from now and have that business plan. Right now, we've got to change our business plan, right? We made a business plan when we started our company. We've got to change it. So if you don't know how to do that and you need some help, you guys have some excellent, Miss Sarah knows how to do that. Nathan knows how to do that. I know how to do that. Reach out to some people because this is not the time to be shy. I always say, if I don't have a question and I don't know the answer, I reach out to my wonderful people because it's going to take all of us working together, like Nick said, to help us through this. So I'm just going to go over just briefly on it. Basically, like I said, it's payroll, and then it's your rent and your utilities. And payroll, remember, also includes for if you provide health care for your workers or paid vacation, and then don't forget your taxes, because a lot of my people are forgetting their taxes. So I have to go through and kind of add that back on. And if you're giving yourself retirement benefits, or you're doing a matching 401k, some companies do that. They might do health insurance, but they do give like some money back as like a 401k or retirement plan. So
Charlene, may I jump in? And I've got a couple of questions about those payments. And Nathan, this might be something you can jump in too. I know you said that the focus for those funds is for payroll and utilities. Does this include payments to maybe vendors or independent contractors?
No.
None of
Yeah,
that.
1099s, they can file for their own loan, so they should not be included in the payroll costs for your company. But it creates a sort of weird scenario where a business that is dependent on its independent contractors are now not going to have the money to pay them. They're not going to perform services because they're not getting paid, but they go and apply for their own loan to pay themselves for work they're not doing. So it's a very strange outcome, but the current guidance is 1099s are excluded from a business's calculations. They are to file their own application.
Correct. That was a change, I think, in the past couple weeks, right, Nathan?
Correct. Initially it was included, and then they came out and said excluded.
Correct. And even it says on this piece of paper right here, payment to sole proprietor and independent contractor. So it's saying that you as a sole proprietor, which is like myself, have no employees, and independent contractors. But that's kind of hard because I know people in SBA are saying, if I'm a general contractor, everyone is an independent contractor. That could be 200 people that rely on me to get this job, and that's how I pay them. So I'm right there with Nathan. That's something else is that on the table that we've gone back to SBA and said, well, that's not what you told us to do. We've already filed some of these PPPs. What other programs are you going to do for us? And this is just the tip of the iceberg, the PPP is. If you've already applied for your EIDL, that's a lot of people, I don't do those, but I know you could have done them online. Hopefully you got an email from the government saying, hey, I saw you applied and we're working on that. But it seems to be that there's going to be other SBA Express loan programs coming down the pike because there's a lot of confusion when they threw out EIDL. A lot of people didn't do it right because they didn't have the guidance. They didn't have the wisdom of filling out the paperwork like me and Nathan or Sarah would know how to do that. Because government forms are very, is that a good word to say, Nathan? That
that's
sometimes
about
you have
right.
to.
And I see a question from Lee asking what if he didn't get an email. Unfortunately, the EIDL program is directly through the SBA, and it's pretty much zero transparency as to how they're operating. There is no bank contact, so you'd have to reach out to the SBA people directly and try and figure out where you are in the system. You should have gotten an email, and yesterday I would have told you nobody's gotten any money yet, but overnight I heard from some clients that actually received some of the EIDL funds, even though they applied, 2 or 3 weeks ago. So you're going to have to figure out who to contact at the SBA, and I'm not really sure how that works because they are overloaded and understaffed and not really equipped for the volume they're handling right now.
Right. My sister did apply for the EIDL in Florida, and she got denied. So we don't know why either, and we're trying to reach out. So it makes no sense because we have gotten SBA disaster loans for her business before in the past after the hurricanes. So I appreciate what Nathan is saying is they're overwhelmed. So I don't know what criteria they look at to say no or yes, or we're not sure. But other than there's just not enough people to really get back to them. So now has anybody applied for the PPP at a local bank? Yes.
Actually, everybody's on has switched to an attendee, so I'm not sure. Let's see, we've got at least one person who has raised a hand on that they have applied for the PPP through a local bank. Do you know, Charlene, if those payments, the local banks are actually making those payments, making those loans?
They're not making the payments. I've talked to the vice president of regions, the vice president of Ameris Bank. They are taking them. Those two banks are taking them, or they were customers only. Now, I don't know how you qualify for as a preferred customer because I'm not one. I'm still waiting for Wells Fargo to get back to me. I've been with Wells Fargo for 30 plus years. So I just know that they are working on it as quickly as they can. Unfortunately, they're a little overwhelmed, but Regions is a preferred SBA 7A lender, and they have 50 locations around the United States. So I'm feeling a little more confident in Regions than I am with Ameris. So we'll see what happens. I know my vice presidents are constantly throwing me emails at 10 o'clock at night and saying, hey, we're working on it, but we do have this question. So I'm glad that they're reaching out because they're trying to train more of their staff to do it and cranking them out. Someone was on a conference call. I was listening in Texas, and the one president of the bank said, we're working 12, 14 hours a day, and they just don't stop. We just keep trying to do them. And, it's a lot. It's a lot. We appreciate your patience. So I know some banks are trying. Some banks.
Yeah, along that line, if we're hearing that the funds are running out, should business owners continue to apply so that their applications are in line if additional funds become available, or should they wait here?
Yeah, don't stop.
Yes.
We're going to just keep going.
Keep going. Because
like Nathan said, if we stop applying, then they're going to think we don't need money, right? Don't do that. It's just like this program goes till December 31st. If you look at the fine print, it goes through December 31st. So if millions apply and there's not enough money, then Congress will realize, oh my gosh, we need round 2, round 3, round 4, round 5. So I tell people, we want you to apply for everything that they tell us to apply for. So just do your screenshot. I told everybody to do your screenshot of your EIDL, any ones that you do on your own. If you're communicating with your bank, do a screenshot or save the email information, because that's documentation that you've reached out and done your part, because they're not communicating to us. I can't control SBA, but I can just say, please have something in your hand or on your computer or on a screenshot that showed you submitted. And then that way, if for any reason they come back and said, well, you never applied, then we do have proof you did. If that makes sense. So I just want to make sure that people realize that patience is a virtue and that we just got to keep going. And of course, the benefits to the borrower, this is not a guarantee. There's no closing costs. There's no guarantee fee. There's no payments due for 6 months. So if you don't get the money, if you get the money next month, you don't have to start paying it back for 6 months. And there is a loan forgiveness rule. They changed the rule. It's not $10,000 for this particular program. It's $1,000 per employee. So that's not what the government told us. So there is rebuttal coming back.
It's nowhere in the law.
Yes, nowhere in the law is it saying that. So we know our constituents are upset. Every bank is upset. Every small business owner is upset. And I know our senators and congressmen are going, why are you lying to my people? So once again, this is where we have to practice being patient. Now, the loan rate is only 1% on this loan if it turns into a loan. And they don't only, if you only have 4 employees, then you're only going to get $4,000 plus whatever they decide to give you for interest and utilities and other, whatever they consider that. And it's a 2-year term on this loan. So even though this one you can apply for, you can apply for multiple loans because SBA is going to roll. Because if you currently have an SBA loan at this time, they're currently putting you on hold for payments. And once the dust settles, as they tell me, we're going to roll up everything into one loan. But we can have a conversation about that personally if you are under an SBA loan at this time. I just don't do SBA loans. I do conventional loans. And for some businesses, I've done hard money loans. So we just have to look at the big picture to see what is most important for your business, correct? My job and your job is to keep you going a year to 2 to 5 years from now because we want you to be successful. We want you to grow. Nathan wants to make sure that I find you another lease space or Nick finds you another home or another business that we want to buy or we want to build a building or we have 20 nail salons all over town. We want to make sure your business grows. So that's why we're having this meeting is to encourage you. So do we have any more questions?
I think we have a lot of questions in the chat.
Okay, I didn't look at the chat, so I'll let you go ahead and start, Nathan.
Yeah. Sarah, do you think it's better if I just kind of go to the top and work my way down?
You're on mute, Sarah.
Sorry about that. Here, I've got a couple written down. I've been kind of going through as the questions have come in to see which are, we've got some multiple questions about. So let me start here. Nathan, how is the amount of the PPP loan being determined? Is it based solely on your 2019 income and expense data, taxes? How is that being determined?
Well, that has changed. So initially, it was the bank application said, look at 2019 only. And then the law says, look at the trailing 12 months. Then the Treasury put out some guidance that said you can pick either the trailing 12 months average or 2019. So my recommendation to people has been look at both of those, see which one is more, and pick that. And then if you're a seasonal business, there's some seasonality adjustments that you can put in as well, either looking at your current year or if you look back in the February to June time, what your payroll looked like for that period, because they want to match the peak season that you have to this year's peak season. And if you were impacted in February and March during your peak season, that's not going to look the same as it did last year. So they're trying to give you the maximum amount.
Now, what about new businesses? Businesses that opened up maybe just in the last 6 months, or someone who purchased a new business and is just seeing their own work coming to fruition. What are the guidelines for a new business?
So new businesses, if you are incorporated and not in business until after February 15th, you're out of luck. You don't qualify. So if you existed before February 15th, you can basically take the period in which you have operated and use that to get to your numbers. So you don't have to look back the whole year. You only have to look at what you're operating in. And then if you acquired a business, it depends on, did you buy the stock of the business and you're continuing ongoing operations, or did you buy the assets of the business and now you're starting off as a new venture? So if you bought the stock, you would have the prior operating history because it's the same business. If you bought assets, you're going to be in that as if it's a new business category.
Here's another one. Are there any special considerations or procedures for getting a loan as a solo practitioner of an LLC?
No, I mean, you can still get one. It's
Yeah.
at the top.
But you're going to be, I think, solo, 100% owner of a LLC is going to be treated as a sole proprietor for tax purposes. So you're going to fall into those buckets rather than I think that's an April 10th was when you can first apply. And you're going to have to look at your income and expenses as a sole proprietor that flow through to your personal returns. But you should still qualify.
Right. I've done people that are self-employed and are just on the Schedule C. So that's a lot of people. So it's just as Nathan was saying, is if you are self-employed and then you only have a Schedule C. So
and I think it's line 931, maybe the net income line.
Yes.
That's what you're going to use to determine the number.
And then if you have a profit and loss statement, we can have a conversation out. You've got to have wages on line 26, but that's a whole nother conversation. If you contact me, because trust me, I've been doing everybody. Doesn't change the rule on the independent contractors. All my general contractors contacted me and went, "Oh my God, Miss Charlene, what are we gonna do now?" I said, "Okay, calm down. Everybody calm down." So yeah, and we're hoping they don't change that again. But if we do, well, then we'll just go with the flow, right, Nathan?
Yeah, it's a moving target for sure. And now everyone who was looking at, well, how do I structure my business? Oh, it doesn't really matter. I'll just pick this or that or try and play this little tax game. It's all kind of unintended consequences here of this is really hard because the different categories you can set yourself up as, the treatment's so different depending on where you fall.
Correct.
Really quick, Charlene, can you, just so that we can see it, the form that has the 926 and the 930,
Sure.
you have that one as well, so you can show people where that's coming from.
The borrow application you're talking about? What do you want me to show?
The one you were just talking about, you referenced line 926. And
Oh,
line
I didn't he referenced that. It's that's not
The
gonna,
tax returns.
I don't have a tax return in front of me.
Yeah, I don't either.
Oh, is that what that was? That was from the tax return. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, he was referencing if people are familiar with their tax returns, what line.
Oh, okay.
Because some people were trying to figure out, should I do this on my gross profit, my net profit, what expenses get pulled out. And for sole proprietors and Schedule C, I believe it's 931. That's the net income line. That is going to be the number you use for determining your payroll costs.
He was commenting on the statement where if you're a sole proprietor or independent contractor, how do we come up with those numbers? And it's not easy sometimes for somebody to understand that, because a lot of my clients, they just throw everything at their bookkeeper and their CPA when they wouldn't even know how to pull this out. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nathan.
No, that's right. It's like, tell me how much money I have to pay the government.
Basically, right. Unless you've done your own taxes like myself. But even I have a CPA, so it's only because
A good CPA is definitely worth the price.
Yes, they are. They're worth their weight in gold. Trust me. I cannot specify that enough. I joined Smyrna Business Association years ago when I lived in Smyrna. There was that wonderful gentleman that had the tax company right there, Nick, in Smyrna. Remember his name?
I do not.
Oh, okay. He was a wonderful gentleman, and I loved about him, just like you're helping Nick, he would always give us some tidbits as small businesses. And then he said, okay, now let's listen to Charlene. What did she got to say? Because we always tag team together and said, okay, good records, good receipts, and little tips. And I just love everyone's spirit to say, hey, let's just jump in and help each other, because that's what it's all about. You know, it really is. And thank you so much, Nick, for making this happen. So what's your next? I don't see the questions. I'll let you answer them, Nathan. Go ahead.
Let me jump in with another one, kind of dovetailing off of our conversation with independent contractors. There was another question about what about a company that uses a temp service to pay employees? I assume that temp service would be filing their own application, but you may be losing. You may as that company not be able to apply using those wages. But let me ask first about that. If there's a situation where that business can take that into account as part of their PPP loan application, but also for companies that aren't able to use their independent contractors as payroll, is there an alternative that you would recommend that they look at? Like some of these are there other SBA loans that they should consider to help keep their business afloat?
So from what I have seen, if it is a true temp company, the temp company will apply for the PPP loan. If you're doing it as a PEO, then the PEO will provide the payroll costs to the company, and the company can use that as its payroll costs. So the difference is really, are you in a true PEO or are you in just a sort of temp placement service?
And what's a PEO?
It's the professional employer organization. So a lot of doctors will set that up so that they don't have anybody on staff, but they contract with a different group to provide doctors and staff for the hospitals. So if you're in that type of relationship, then the payroll costs carry over. If you're just in sort of a Randstad staffing temp agency role, then they are not actually your employee. They are the employees of the temp company. So that's part of the problem of the people who actually have the costs and are paying for the services aren't going to have the money to pay for those services. So yeah, your temp is going to get paid by the payroll or the temp company, but you're not going to have anybody coming in to do your work because you don't get money to pay them.
Yeah, so for a company like that, maybe Charlene, do you know, are there other loan programs out there that those types of companies
there's more. There are more loan programs coming. I asked that conversation yesterday because the PPP is for profit and nonprofits, so I can do them for my nonprofits. And then they'll come out with some more SB Express loans because we're going to have to, because like I just said, me and Nathan said, we got to look at the window 6 months to 2 years or 5 years from now to keep your businesses operating. But they're not giving me that information because, as me and Nathan say, they keep changing this PPP. They have all these applications, and we're asking them to expand the criteria. Instead of it just being the 8 week of payroll, they have a lot of documentation that has to follow up with this that I've already seen. So I'm not understanding why they wouldn't change this, but I'm not going to.
The devil is in the details, and the more people kind of run through the analysis, they keep finding little wrinkles and things that don't quite fit, and it just keeps raising issues. And I think nobody wants to rely purely on loans to fund their business, but there are certainly room for debt and room for equity in your business, depending on how you're structured. It really, these are designed short-term Band-Aid, get through the next 8 weeks. Longer term, Charlene and other folks can give you advice on, okay, well, what's the best money I can get? How can I make this work in a way that's sustainable? But the focus right now is get through the short term and see where we end up.
Correct. Yes, because they cannot focus on the next Express Loan program until they have told, yes, we have as many PPP applications that we have money for, and then they have to report back. And there really isn't I think, a final number on that yet. So it's a work in progress. So,
And the demand for these is
Replying.
far outstripping the supply of cash. So I was reading an article in the paper today about the guy who got I think he got $1.1 million, but he didn't want to use it for payroll because he didn't want to pay his people to stand around and do busy work. And I kind of laughed because that's the whole point of the loan is you're supposed to bring your people back and pay them so they can stay
Right.
employed. So I'm curious how that'll shake out for him.
well, it won't turn into a grant. It'll turn into a loan to
Right.
have to pay.
And the terms on these loans are pretty favorable. I mean, 1% money is
Absolutely.
hard
They're
to
down
beat.
here. It says there's no guarantee. There's no collateral. There's no personal guarantee. And I appreciate what Nathan said. On a normal SBA loan, there is a personal guarantee. So you're putting up your assets, your home, some collateral, just like any other loan that
Mhm.
to a bank or your mortgage. You don't own that home. The bank does. So when you pay that, finally make that last payment, then it's yours. Then you better make sure you pay your taxes because then somebody can come take it. So,
That's right.
so the devil, it's in the details. The devil in the details.
And I will
So-
tell you, even the no collateral piece of this is a detail-driven thing because they're saying no collateral. But if you read the fine print, and a lot of the banks are saying this, if there's collateral available, we'd love to take it. We won't tell you no if there's not collateral. But if you do have real estate and you do have something we can take, we'd love to put a lien on it. So depending on who the bank is and what your relationship is, you might actually have some collateral, but they definitely shouldn't be asking for personal guarantees. But if there's real estate, the SBA loves real estate. So if they can get their hands on it, they want it.
Right.
Well, let's talk about that forgiveness piece of it. You say loan forgiveness, SBA rules will apply. I think some people think that this is like, free money, no strings attached, at least that first, now $1,000 per employee. What are the obstacles that you have to kind of overcome to be sure that you are in that forgiveness category?
Go ahead, Nathan. I've got the application. We can kind of look on the
Yeah. So the forgiveness piece for the PPP, which is not, I don't believe, a feature of the EIDL loans. The EIDL are more working capital type loans. It's more typical emergency disaster that we've seen in the past. The PPP loan is really payroll driven, and the forgiveness piece is you go to the bank, you ask for forgiveness, and then you have to justify it with receipts for what you spent the money on. So give them your payroll numbers, give them your rent and utilities. Initially, 100% of it was to be forgiven regardless of where you used it. But the Treasury has said, based on how we think all this will shake out, we believe 75% of it will be forgivable and used for payroll. Up to 25% of it will be forgivable and used for non-payroll costs, qualified costs being rent, utilities, those type of charges. But basically, you're going to have to keep track of all of this, which is why Charlene's point of put it in a separate account is really helpful, because now you've isolated the funds. You can show the money coming out of the account, and you can trace it to where those funds went, and you don't commingle it with your other. If you get a bunch of money coming in from sales, well, how do you know which dollars go where? It becomes an accounting nightmare. So if you have it bifurcated, it's a lot easier to track. You go to the bank with your little package and say, I'd like forgiveness. And then they say yes or no. The criteria of what a bank says yes or no for is not spelled out yet. I expect there'll be some more guidance on that in the future. But currently, it's up to the bank to say forgive or not forgive. And then they would turn to the SBA and say, all right, we've forgiven this loan. You've got a guarantee. Make me whole. And that's how the lender gets, incentivized to do these loans, because they're not going to lose money either way. If the borrower doesn't repay or if it's forgiven, the SBA will back that loan.
Yes, correct. So it's, like I said, it's put it in a separate checking and then document, because exactly what it says, this is what's on the application, and you're going to sign it right here under certifications. I understand that the loan forgiveness will be provided the sum of documented payroll costs, covered mortgage interest, and covered rent payments, and covered utilities, not more than 25% of the forgiven amount for non-payroll costs. So this is what you're signing. And then, of course, all these are that you're signing your life away here saying, I'm getting all the information correct. And it's going to give you all kinds of government mandates of saying if you lie to us, it's a fine of $5,000 or more, or you could be in prison. So the government doesn't play. So what I tell people, when you get this type of document and you don't understand it, please reach out to Nathan. Please reach out to another attorney that can explain it to you so you understand what you're signing for. That's why we have like 25 pieces of paper when we go to a closing table for a mortgage on residential, and we have 125 when we go to commercial. And I've got 2 attorneys sitting there explaining to my clients exactly what they're signing to buy this business and for the lease, or when they buy a building, sometimes we have a 3rd attorney. So you're only good as your counsel. Correct, Nathan?
That's right. And we like helping folks and charging for it. So that's how we make our living. So
That's
the
right.
more attorneys, the merrier.
Definitely. My daughter's actually.
There
think
is a difference in the EIDL and PPP loans, and the EIDL is a calculation. You can get up to $2 million on that one. It's a higher interest rate, and it is really geared towards, are you in the disaster area? Has your business been impacted? It's really the traditional kind of emergency disaster relief loan programs that the SBA has rolled out in the past. The PPP is a function of 2.5 times those payroll costs, or $10 million, whichever is less. And if you get an EIDL loan and you got the funds, and then you apply for the PPP, they will refinance that EIDL loan with the PPP. So you can add that loan balance into your application for that, which I think you would want to do because it is a lower rate. I think the EIDL is at like 3.75, and
Correct, and 2.75 for nonprofits. Mm-hmm.
And 2.75 for nonprofits, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And then the 10,000 advance. Let's see, if you have 10,000 from EIDL loan, they will forgive less on the PPP. They will add that $10,000 advance into the PPP and then use whatever the forgiveness amounts are for that. So if you use that 10,000 for payroll, that should still be forgiven because you've used it for the purposes that have been identified for forgiveness.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Scott, if you had a EIDL loan first and you get a PPP later, they want you to refinance that EIDL. And the $10,000 is now $1,000 per employee, capped at 10. The Massachusetts district office for the SBA came out with that. As far as I know, the main office has said we're waiting on senior policy officials to make sure that's what we want to do. So it might change back, but for now, some people are doing $1,000 per employee, but I have yet to see where that's supported by anything in the law. So I'd love to see how that shakes out.
Yeah, me and Nathan are very upset about that because that's not what we were told by our president.
And it's not what is in the law. So I'm very confused how they got there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, do we have any other questions that we need to answer?
I've got a question. I know there was an article that came out the other day that Ruth Chris's Steakhouse got some huge amount, some huge loan. And I've heard about some other chains that are getting COVID-19 related loans and disaster relief. I would say as a small business, maybe it's a little disconcerting to see these huge companies getting these loans, whereas some of the advice is just sit and wait and be patient. Is it really sit and wait and be patient, or be the squeaky wheel? Like, what's your practical advice on someone waiting for this money and seeing the news articles? Are we really best to just sit and wait?
Depends on where you're in the process. You know, you need to be patient and understand that this is all a new program. The bankers are scrambling with it. The borrowers are scrambling with it. The SBA is scrambling with it. Everyone's trying to figure out how this works. But you do need to apply. You do need to get in line because it is first come, first serve. So yes, be patient with the hiccups in the program, but no, get in line, get in front of your banker, process this as fast as possible. All of the loan terms are the same across the board. So it's who can process your application the fastest, and will they even take you? Because I know a lot of banks that I work with are saying, we're not taking on new customers right now. We are only focusing on our current existing relationships. And in 2 weeks, if we process all of this and there's money left, then we'll start talking to new people. But right now, we've been directed, don't talk to anyone new, only focus on our current base, and we're processing this as fast as we can. So having, small business is a funny term when you're looking at companies with, 300 locations and tons of employees, and they're really big businesses on scale. So, the smaller mom and pops are kind of left out because these other larger companies are taking on larger chunks of the money, but they also have 500 employees. If you look at a restaurant chain that has multiple locations across multiple brands and you consolidate them all together, you could have 1,200 employees. And so the government's saying, we can keep 1,200 people employed, let's get them their money.
Correct. Everything what he just said is correct. Like I said, the two local banks are only dealing with their preferred clients. Now, that's a conversation you and I can have, because some of my lenders, not in Georgia, are taking PPP, self-employed, independent contractors, nonprofits. That's what I'm working on right now for a lot of people. And we can't control if correct me if I'm wrong, the government did roll out the next layer, which was medium-sized employers of 500,000 or more. So this money's tiered. That's why we got to go back and ask for more.
Mm-hmm.
Enough for the small businesses. There's not enough for the restaurant chains or other companies that were shut down. Big Lots is not open. They do curbside only. They have multiple locations all over the country. So it's affected many medium-sized companies also, like Starbucks. You got to wait in the drive-thru forever for your coffee. They're not going to open up anytime soon because they have to wait and see what each location, what each county says, what each mayor says when they can open up. So that tier of money has just opened it up on Tuesday. So doesn't mean they forgot the small business people or the independent contractors. They just opened the next level. And then there'll be another level that they're going to open up. But once again, they're going to run out of money. So they're going to have to come back and give us more money.
And hopefully we all get released back into the world so we can actually make our own money and not have to rely on the government.
That's true. Because here in the state of Georgia, I guess, who's online with the congressman? We're shelter in place till the 30th. And then they're saying maybe till May 15th. I'm hoping and praying that we can all go back to work wear a mask or whatever our requirements are by the end of May or middle of May. And then that way, we can be making money and taking care of our families and taking care of our employees and getting back to some, as we can, for social distancing and being careful, because I don't know how long this virus is going to keep coming back. But I think there's going to be a new norm. There's definitely going to be a new norm.
And, there's always going to be a new virus or a new disaster or something else that knocks you off your business plan. So the cure for that is to keep tweaking the business plan, keep thinking, okay, how do we address this? Working with your team and your advisors, and having the attitude of it's not going to kill us. We're just going to figure out how to adjust and make it work.
Correct.
Because nobody, sitting here a year ago, I never would have thought we'd all be stuck at home on a Zoom call talking about, sheltering in place and social distancing. And who knows what the next curveball will be. But, we can do the best we can and there's a lot of smart people out there that can help guide you through this.
And thank you, Nathan. Thank you. And we just have to be together and just, there's unity in number, as I always say, whether you belong to Smyrna Business Association, Cobb Chamber, or, have a pipeline right to your congressman or your senator. We stick together, we're stronger. And I think we just need to realize, and I appreciate Nick of putting this together to get the information. And we would love to come back, me and Nathan, because I guarantee you 2 weeks, we'll have more information.
More data.
Mm-hmm. And
More data.
Margarita, I see your question here about profitability, and I do not believe that is a requirement under the EIDL program. Again, it's written by the SBA directly, and one of the loan criteria is that the SBA has to determine your ability to repay the loan, but that's not really clearly laid out. What they mean by that is pretty ambiguous, and everyone I've seen that's applied for it now has been approved because they're assuming your business will continue once the world gets back to relative normalcy and you can repay. So don't let the fact that you haven't turned a profit yet stop you from applying. At least get in line, make your case, and see if you can qualify. So lack of profitability should not knock you out entirely.
And I see, Charlene, you just added a slide with your contact information. I think that's fantastic. Nathan, would you share your contact information to all panelists and attendees in the chat? And
yeah, I can try that.
Since y'all, there's so many questions that are business specific and situation specific. I think if our attendees have specific questions, that they would love the ability to be able to reach out to you all. And I agree, we may have you back in a couple of weeks. The information has changed so much. We did our first webinar on these loans about 2 weeks ago, and there has already been significant changes. And I think it's really great for our members to be able to ask you all, the experts, all these questions. So we will definitely be in touch.
Yeah, no, please. I welcome emails, phone calls. Happy to help as best we can. And, that's why we're here.
Yes, ma'am. And Sarah, thank you, because as you as an attorney yourself know that we're only good as the information we get. We have to decipher it. And like I said, we're telling what's happening today. And I guarantee me and Nathan can have a conversation tonight at 7 o'clock and it'll be a little different.
And we appreciate that. We know the information's changing every day. And what we do plan to do, the Smyrna Business Association, is we've recorded this webinar.
Awesome.
And we will post it on the event page where you registered on the SBA website, as well as Charlene. There's several people who are hoping we can share your materials there as well.
We can. Mr. Nick has them. I do not want you to keep the copy. That the PPP application is for information only. There is a new version. So whoever you apply with PPP, you let them give you the version that they want to give you. I just showing you for a screenshot and just to go over the information, because I wanted Nathan to be very specific to go over the legalities of what you're signing. It's a contract. It's a contract. And when I say you don't understand a contract, don't ask me the question. I have legal staff right here that can answer the question. And I'm not going to go there. So,
because the state of Georgia is not like people practicing law without a license. So if you give people legal advice, it should come from a lawyer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, whatever we can do to help you guys, because I appreciate Nathan, because he's like me. We're frustrated, but we've never seen, I lived in Florida, so I've seen, unfortunately, one disaster after another when there's a hurricane. I lived through the floods that we had in Georgia. I lived in Paulding County at the time. And I'm the one who got FEMA and SBA out there because so many roads were shut down. And that was another disaster here in Georgia that was with us for many, many, many years. As everybody can remember, Austell was underwater. Thornton Road was underwater. And that took millions and millions of money that we had to beg for just in the state of Georgia to rebuild our state. So there's going to be more loans coming. And I love what Nathan just said. Don't just rely on the loans. If you're an entrepreneur, you've got an entrepreneur a spirit. So get out there, be creative. I love all these people that have this technology that are in this group. Ask them how to do it. Ask the barter guy. That's the coolest thing. I wish I could do stuff for real estate. That's amazing. I mean, who thought of barter? I remember my grandmother doing that. You know, I'll give you some eggs and you give me some corn. So, I mean, the wisdom in this group is amazing. So please share it with each other. Everyone in this group I know wants to help you be successful. They want you to be part of Smyrna Business Association tomorrow, next year, and the year after. Correct, Nick? Nick, correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, you are absolutely, you're dead on.
Because we're here to help each other. That's what it is about community. We're helping our community. And yes, my community outstretches only because I belong to a nonprofit and I go around the world with my nonprofit. We help children and families with special needs. So, but remember, we all need to connect and show empathy, be kind, just be encouraging to say, we're going to get through this together. And that's what I love about Nick and Nathan and Sarah, is that you have some wonderful people in this group. I do Zoom meetings every single day, sometimes 3 times a day. And what people want to hear is, and I'm here to encourage you and say, we will get through this together. So thank you so much, Mr. Nick. We really appreciate you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Charlene and Nathan, for coming on here today. And at this time, the meeting is adjourned. So thank you all very much for coming in, and we appreciate your time.
Thanks, y'all.
Y'all have a blessed day.
You
Take
too.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.